rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to American Perspective. Of course, today is St. Patrick's Day. Well, at least here in the States, as my buddy who is Irish says, I'm Irish 365 or 366 days out of the year, depending upon whether or not it's a leap year or not. And I'm actually part Irish myself. So, I mean, for me, not wearing green, although I am wearing green, as you can see here. But I was going to be wearing a different hat, and it didn't freaking work with the green screen. I had to flip it to blue, and then it was the green of the hat was so close to the blue, the camera couldn't figure it out. And yeah, anyway, so it's been a wonderful day. Plus, after this, I got to go and run some new fence because, because the horses broke down the other one. Anyway. So much going on. I can't even imagine. What's going on. Well, speaking of what's going on, we have tonight's headline sponsor. Oh, wait, before I get into that, we have to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So tonight is BAM's. BAM is up to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mind, please stand. Remove your hat if you're wearing one like me. And go along with Bam as she recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and I thank you, Bam, for sending in that pledge. If you would like to hear your version of the pledge on the program, all you need to do is record yourself performing the pledge in your style. And once you have that audio or video file, take that file, attach it to an email, send it off to me. Fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans at AmericanPerspective.online. And of course, I will get you into the lineup and the program, as U.S. Abby Girl just found out. That happened fairly quickly when she got it here. All right, I want to tell you about 1775 coffee. Weak coffee is for the weak, and at Rumble, weak has never been a part of the mission. No fillers, no fraud, and no settling for mediocrity. Just like 1775 coffee. It's single origin, small farm, hand-picked, specialty-grade coffee that stands for quality, free speech, and calling out BS when it matters. Forget stale, mass-produced beans roasted just enough to hide the flaws. Dark roast hits like a Trump tariff. Medium roast keeps it bold without the bitterness. And the Vitality Mushroom Blend. Real energy and lasting focus. No synthetic garbage. For K-Cup pods, whole beans, or fresh ground coffee, go to 1775coffee, that's all one word, .com, and use promo code STUDIO, STUDIO, for 15% off. And start your morning with coffee that stands for something. Go to 1775coffee.com. That's 1775coffee.com. Use promo code STUDIO for 15% off. And start your morning with coffee that stands for something. Oh, and by the way, every dollar spent with 1775 coffee enters you to win a Cybertruck and $30,000 cash. Go to 1775coffee.com and use promo code STUDIO for that 15% off and the chance to win that Cybertruck and that $30K. There we go. First one out of the way. Also, too, don't forget, coming out April 7th, it is TGRN's newest channel, Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio, debuting April 7th. You can check us out at tgrn.net. That's our home on the web. And when you're there, you'll see on the front page, you'll see the socials where you can connect with Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio. We have Facebook, Instagram, and X up there. You can go and click on those, get yourself signed up, follow Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio, and get in on all of the upcoming events and things that are going to be going on. Don't forget, we have those 2 launch parties at those Dallas Moore concerts, one on April 9th in New Braunfels, Texas at Green Hall, Grune, where I will be there along with the rest of the TGRN crew. And also, too, on the 13th, April 13th, at the Dallas Moore concert in Luckenbach, Texas. That's right, the Luckenbach, Texas that you know about. Luckenbach, Texas. Waylon, Willie, and the boys. Yeah, all those guys. That's from the actual Luckenbach, Texas. We will be there on the 13th, the night of the 13th, for a launch party there as well. And I will be there with the rest of the TGRN crew, too. So if you are in Texas and can make it, head on out. Come see us. All right. Go to tgrn.net. Listen to our current Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio through the web or on our apps that you can download. You can click on the links and you can download them from either the App Store or Google Play stores. Or if you already have the Live 365, Odyssey, AUDACY, or the iHeartRadio apps, you can find us in their catalogs of digital radio stations as well. Go to tgrn.net. That stands for True Grit Roots Network, based out of Austin, Texas. All right. Let's get things kicked off. So Trump came out last night late, or Saturday night late. I don't remember which night it was. But he all of a sudden puts out, guess what? The pardons that Biden gave during his final days in office, he's calling them void. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if constitutionally that's going to be able to be done necessarily. However, if it were actually signed by the former president, Joe Biden. Now, rumor has it that Hunter's pardon is actually in Joe Biden's signature. But the rest, for Fauci, Liz Cheney, Adam Shifty Schiff, the other people, the part of the January 6th folks, all of those are signed in auto pen. And so Trump, by doing this, I think is bringing the constitutionality of the auto pen up for debate and for the what do you call it? The courts to decide. So he wrote on True Social, the pardons that Sleepy Joe Biden gave the unselect committee of political thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect because of the fact that they were done by auto pen. And that was shortly after midnight that he wrote this. In other words, Joe Biden did not sign them, but more importantly, he did not know anything about them, Trump said. The necessary pardoning documents were not explained to or approved by Biden. He knew nothing about them, and the people that did may have committed a crime. Now, again, constitutionally, I don't know for sure. Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we're doing right now that's outside of the constitutional boundaries, I guess, or constitutional norms. But then again, that's just been the way of things for the last 10 or 15 years. So here's the thing, okay? The question is going to be whether or not the auto pen is legal. Now, remember how I talked to you a little bit about this auto pen deal. The way the auto pen is supposed to work is that the person who is having their signature copied is supposed to be in the room and have approved the auto pen. Remember what I was telling you, that Obama was the first president in history, known history, who had the auto pen sign his signature while he was not there. And to be honest, nobody really ever questioned it. I mean, nobody ever really did. And so the auto pen has been used for a long, long time. Okay. Now, and it's been used mostly for administrative purposes, let's say. Things like, pardons, though, that are exclusively for the president. I think you're going to kind of have to prove, if you're going to challenge this, you're going to kind of have to prove that the president did not know that any of that was happening, and that the president did not approve of that happening. There are documents within the legal realm, by the way, that are allowed to be signed electronically, meaning that, I can do a certified electronic signature and send it to somebody in, somewhere else, and it will be considered authentic as far as that goes. So this is kind of sort of the same thing. Maybe. I'm not entirely sure where the legality is going to end up. But I guarantee you this much: Donald Trump is planning on probably taking it to court, because let's just face it, there's a lot of question with regards to the quote unquote auto pen in the auto pen scenario here. So we're just going to have to kind of watch and see what happens. Again, they were going to have to focus on, the idea as to whether or not Joe Biden knew what essentially he was signing. So, and they're going to have to prove it if they go to court. They're going to have to prove that Joe Biden not only did not know what he was signing, but also did not know the fact that his signature was being utilized by the auto pen to sign. This is going to be another one of those constitutional, what the Dems call constitutional crisis things. Now, me personally, I would kind of want to lean on the side that for things that are of extreme importance, such as signing bills, signing pardons, I would say that that would have to be done in real life. Like a person would actually have to sign their signature to that particular paper. The use of the auto pen I could see for a lot of other administrative duties, maybe even getting down to things like executive orders, for the most part, because technically executive orders don't have the same weight as, say, a bill that's been passed by Congress. But it's going to be interesting and, dare I say, entertaining to watch as this goes through this whole thing. Now, you remember I was telling you before about the Heritage Foundation's oversight project that basically said that Biden signed only maybe 2 or 3 actual, or, well, not 2 or 3, but very few actual things, and that the auto pen was the largest piece. And I know Buddy Weiser is sitting there in the chat. He's basically talking about the signatures being exactly the same. I am not entirely sure that that's going to bear out in terms of legal witnesses, but although that might have an impact of all of that, of all of the things that are going on, Also, too, keep in mind, as G points out, the legality of some of these blanket pardons. Some people are questioning that, although those actually have precedence in SCOTUS cases. So those actually have precedence to basically say that the blanket pardon, or that the pardon power of the president, is very far and very wide. Okay. So that one, I don't think they have quite of a legal leg to stand on with that one. But as far as like the auto pen signatures, that might be, especially if they can prove that Joe Biden was nowhere near the thing while it was being signed. Anyway, the poll numbers and some more poll numbers have come out, and there's some big numbers, well, good numbers for Trump. So, President Trump, there was an NBC poll. Now, keep in mind, NBC News poll, it's kind of, they're a leftist organization, so they probably poll Democrats much more than Republicans. But 44% of Americans now believe that the United States is heading in the right direction. NBC News pollster Steve Kormacki broke down the numbers with Meet the Press and anchor Kristen Welker during Sunday morning's broadcast. And he noted that the last president to see a number that high was former President George W. Bush, just months ahead of his reelection in 2004. So, 44% say we're on the right track. That's up from December's number of 27%. But the last time, like you said, that it cracked 40% was back in 2012. It's pretty sad that our country is so disappointed in our government and saying that the country is going in the right direction that it took all the way back to 2012 to get above 40%. And even that's not really a big number. I mean, let's face it. We should be sitting at numbers around 50, 60% if everything's going right. Hopefully we'll get there. Now, he also pointed out that the last time that it was actually 44% or higher was back in January of 2004. We're talking 21 years ago, folks. Now, the Democrat Party has a new all-time low in its approval rating. In the same poll, it had just 27% that had a positive view of the party as a whole. And only 7% said that that particular view was, quote, very positive. So, yeah. Voters who had negative views of the Democrat Party sat at 55%, and 38% said that they had a very negative view of Democrats. So those mark the lowest NBC News approval ratings for Democrats since back in 1990. Anyway, that's a long ways away. That's a long, wow. Anyway, and Horowitz, wait, hold on. Who's this guy? Oh, Horowitz said of the results, the guy that's telling us all this. He said of the results, with these numbers, the Democrat Party is not in need of a rebrand. It needs to be rebooted. Yeah. Now, keep in mind that particular poll was taken prior to Chuck Schumer flipping the script on the Democrats for the continuing resolution. Anyway. All right. Well, let's move to another thing that Trump is doing right, that as to why the polls are showing that he's going in the right direction. So Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act, and by doing so, clearly wrote specifically that he was going after Tren de Aragua. Now, of course, this flipped the Democrats out big time. And they were all talking about the fact that the Alien Enemies Act hasn't been used except for in wartime and, all of these other things. Well, I got a thing about it to say to the Democrats. First of all, the bill itself doesn't say that it needs to be done in wartime. That may be when it was invoked, but it doesn't say it has to be. Not to mention the fact, how do you declare war on a group of civilians? Being able to declare war is basically reserved for things like actual other nations. This is part of the reason why the Islamic State was sort of able to be declared war upon, because they were acting as though they were a actual national entity. Okay, it's a stretch. I'll give it. It's a stretch. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that Trump is trying to do this in order to protect Americans, and he's trying to get rid of Tren de Aragua gang members, especially those who are here illegally and committing crimes, more so than just hopping the border. Now, his order reads in part, Tren de Aragua, further after known as TDA, is a designated foreign terrorist organization with thousands of members, many of whom have unlawfully infiltrated the United States. TDA operates in conjunction with the Cartel de los Soles, the Nicolas Maduro regime-sponsored narco-terrorism enterprise based in Venezuela, and commits brutal crimes, including murders, kidnappings, extortions, human and drug and weapons trafficking. TDA has engaged in and continues to engage in mass illegal migration to the United States to further its objective of harming United States citizens, undermining public safety, and supporting the Maduro regime's goal of destabilizing democratic nations in the Americas, including the United States. TDA is closely aligned with, and indeed has infiltrated, the Maduro regime, including its military and law enforcement apparatus. TDA grew significantly while Tariq el-Assami, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, anyway, served as governor of Aragua between 2012 and 2017. In 2017, el-Assami was appointed as vice president of Venezuela. Soon thereafter, the United States Department of the Treasury designated el-Assami as a special designated narcotics trafficker under the Foreign Narcotics Kingpin Designation Act, 21 U.S.C. 1901. El-Assami is currently a United States fugitive facing charges arising from his violations of the United States sanctions triggered by his Department of the Treasury designation. Now, all of that, he continues on, but I'm not going to read the whole thing. Anyway, the point is that this bill, or this inaction, 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 not inaction as in not doing anything, but inaction, ENACT, of the Alien Enemies Act is only targeting the TDA. Now, that's where it's kind of a, could it be that Trump is sort of testing the waters? It's possible. It's very possible that he's testing the waters. He's testing to see if the legal sense of him being able to utilize this against Tren de Aragua members is going to pass muster in the courts. Now, I personally look at it and say, why would anybody even take it to the court system? I mean, it's not like he's trying to, intern Japanese Americans, which we found out in World War II, which was, by the way, when this act was used. But anyway, there's absolutely no doubt that Tren de Aragua, is a, shall we say, clear and present danger to the citizens of the United States. So why anybody would even attempt to, go against this is, to me, just amazing, to be honest with you. But, and I'll get to it, it did. Somebody got mad. Somebody got mad. But before any of that happened, getting mad, that is, here in the Epic Times, Trump jumped, or, well, I don't know if he necessarily jumped the gun or not, but here, according to Rubio, our Secretary of State, more than 250 Tren de Aragua gang members were deported back to El Salvador into prison. This is what we hired President Trump to do. Is this exact thing. So why anybody is really surprised about this? And honestly, again, I ask the question, why would anybody be argumentative over the fact that this happened? These are bad people, folks. They're criminals. They need to go. I'm totally confused as to why anybody is even arguing about this. Why anybody is even remotely sad about this situation. But according to the Democrats, who, by the way, love their criminals, they all are like, these are Americans, being sent. How do you know that? How do you know these people are Americans? And by the way, as far as that goes, once they're in prison or once they've been imprisoned, they're a criminal. They're no longer necessarily considered a full American citizen because you pull things like their voting rights and their rights to keep and bear arms, and they lose the right to freedom and all these, freely move about the country. There's a whole bunch of freedoms that get lost when you cross the law and get caught by it. I'm sorry, I'm failing to see where the Democrats are actually gaining anything by arguing against this. Because this is exactly what the American people wanted to do. They want Donald Trump to do this. They want FBI Kash Patel and FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino, first day on the job today, by the way, to do this. They want Pam Bondi to do this stuff. That's why Trump was elected in what is essentially a landslide mandated election result. So, yeah. Anyway, all of that being the case, you have the morons. And the chief moron, or at least the most recent chief moron, Jasmine Crockett. She claims that Trump was using, quote unquote, a zombie law to execute the deportations. Yeah. So she attacked Donald Trump over the weekend for not only enacting the alien law, but also for using it to deport the members of the Tren de Aragua terrorist organization. Again, why would anybody with any kind of sense be against this? Folks, this is a good thing. This is a good thing. The left is so discombobulated right now, they can't even figure out what the hell they're doing. They just can't. And they're trying to rally behind people like Jasmine Crockett, which, speaking about that, rallying behind people, there was a poll that was done, and I don't have it here, but there was a poll that was done asking people, literally, who do you think is in charge of the Democrat Party? And many people responded, which, by the way, this isn't an overwhelming percentage. Only about 11% responded that AOC was in charge. Oh, wait, what? So you have a moron leading morons Yes, she is favored to run the party at like 10, 11%. That's not that big of a percentage, folks. It's not like an overwhelming thing. But she and anyway, right now between Jasmine Crockett and AOC, there's I think there's like, and oh, don't forget John Fetterman too. Both all three of them are like up there. Not saying anything about John Fetterman, but he and AOC have been going at it for a while. Anyway, Crockett was where was she? She was talking to Jake Tapper, and Tapper said that gang is obviously associated with a lot of crime, human trafficking, drug dealing, theft, shootings, including in your state of Texas, right outside of your congressional district. He then asked her, do you agree with this? And if not, what's your issue with the U.S. using any tool at its disposal to remove undocumented violent people from this country? Crockett then responded by claiming that the law need not be used because we already have tools that are available to remove undocumented violent people from our country. Really? We do. You mean the ones that Joe Biden didn't for 4 years? Anyway. She continued by saying, and so the idea that you want to go into a zombie law, this is kind of like what we saw in Arizona when they decided to revive a zombie law around abortion. It is the fact that we can't trust this administration to actually use a scalpel, but instead they love to use a butcher knife on things, she said. Now, wait a minute. Scalpel. He's pointing it directly at Trende Aragua. How much more of a scalpel do you need? How much finer of an edge do you actually need? You know, Ms. Crockett, do you actually have to have the names of the people that he is planning on deporting under the law? I mean, again, he levied the law or leveraged the law directly against Trende Aragua. How much more specific do you have to get? Anyway. Well, shortly after they rounded up all those 250 people, and actually right before they landed in El Salvador, there was a judge that dropped a decision and basically said that, yeah, he needs to bring them back. Right. So, this is, of course, after within hours, some TDA members, after the hours of Trump invoking the act, within hours, some TDA members were on U.S. aircraft heading to some other place. Anyway, a federal judge who seemed to think that he was the head of his own branch of government, according to this piece in Red State, went ahead and ordered the Trump administration to turn the flight around and bring them back to the U.S. Well, Trump has appealed. That. Pam Bondi filed an appeal of the judge's order forbidding the deportation of these Venezuelan gangsters in a filing to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. court. In the filing, Bondi asked the court to, quote, halt this massive, unauthorized imposition on the executive's authority to remove people that defendants had determined to be members of TDA, a group the president and secretary of state have found to be a threat to national security. So anyway, we'll just have to kind of see. So far, okay, we've had what? We've had things like judges telling the executive branch that they can't fire people. Yeah. Yeah. And then we have a judge saying that he can't necessarily redefine or further define the 14th Amendment. Yep, that one's going to go up to the court, go up to the Supreme Court. Now we have this one. Okay. And not only that, but also some other ones too. Why do I have a feeling that that this particular year and presidency is going to be considered the presidency of the justice system? Donald Trump is certainly pushing a lot of buttons. Just saying, he's pushing a lot of buttons, and he's pushing them in such a way that he is going to be making history, not only history in the fact of righting the ship to bring us back to where the United States of America really should have been. Okay. But also keep in mind too, a lot of these, there is a really big question here, because a lot of these judges that are doing this, they're doing it in such a way that they're issuing what is essentially a blanket nationwide order. And the blanket nationwide order is even questionable in legal circles, because these lower court, now keep in mind, again, we discussed this on a previous program, and I'm going to bring it up again. These orders that are coming from these judges, the United States Supreme Court, okay, the United States Supreme Court is the only recognizable, constitutionally recognizable court that has the authority to provide the checks on the other two branches. There's no other court defined in Article 3, other than the fact that the Congress has the ability to create the lower courts and also, point out, tear them down as necessary. Yeah. So just the fact that these lower court judges seem to think that they have the ability, and as we discussed on a previous program, that ability, it only became a thing in recent history. It was not something that was in, the 19th century or the 20th century, even, the early part of the 20th century. None of these people, there wasn't any question whenever an injunction got put in place against the, federal government or whatever, it was only in regards to that particular case and that particular defendant, not these blanket orders that basically say cease and desist everything. The executive branch can do nothing. Really. So yeah, we're starting to see a lot of things that I don't think are going to be overall, if we have a constitutional Supreme Court that can stand up and say, yeah, these guys, because this is just, and Buddy sitting here listing off everything else that's going on, like Trump saying that or a judge saying that Trump couldn't be on the ballot, judge changing a misdemeanor into a felony, which that's the one up in New York. A judge issuing the quote unquote general warrant for Mar-a-Lago. For those of you that don't know about this, the warrant that the FBI served was very broad and overly broad. They didn't even really know what they were looking for. They were just looking everywhere for stuff. They went into Melania's underdrawers for classified documents. Seriously? Anyway. Oh yeah, and don't forget the unconstitutional gag orders on the presidential candidate back then, Donald Trump. There's a lot of them out there. Anyway, well, with regards to liking the and that's, believe me, that's just a small number of things that are out there. I'm sure we could continue with a very long list. But also too, there is the whole fentanyl crisis that we have going on in our country. And there are 16 Senate Democrats in particular who seem to like criminals who utilize fentanyl in our Senate. I just said Senate Democrats. Sorry, I lost my place. Mouse moved everything. Anyway, the Senate, it's the Senate itself now. It has to go to the House of Representatives before we can call it Congress passing it. But the Senate has overwhelmingly passed what's called the Halt Fentanyl Act, which is Senate Bill 331. And it designates fentanyl-related substances on Schedule I drugs, or as Schedule 1 drugs under the Controlled Substances Act. Now, the legislation, which was sponsored by Senator Bill Cassidy out of Louisiana, was backed by 84 senators. These 16, for whatever reason, again, this is one of those things where you're kind of like, okay, the Tren de Aragua thing, deporting criminals, getting them out of our country, yeah, that would be a positive. They're already, arrested or whatever. They've already had their day in court. They're in prison. He's just sending them out. He's just getting rid of them. Okay. That makes sense. That's a common sense kind of thing. Okay. But voting against protecting Americans from fentanyl, which we've had more deaths in the recent history from this thing, this drug that's been coming across the border? Really? I can't believe it. Anyway, here are the 16 Democrats who decided to oppose the final passage of the Halt Fentanyl Act. Angela Alsobrooks from Maryland. Lisa Blunt Rochester from Delaware. Cory Booker. Spartacus himself from New Jersey. Tammy Duckworth out of Illinois. Maisie Hirono out of Hawaii. Those last three I'm not really surprised with. I go up against them on it, or well, not up against them, but I post on their X accounts how stupid they are all the time anyway. Ed Markey from Massachusetts. Jeff Merkley from Oregon, state to the south of me. Alex Padilla, California, 2 states south of me. Oh, is this really a surprise? Bernie Sanders from Vermont. Yep. Oh, hey, Adam Shifty Schiff is on this list too. He's from California. Chris Van Hollen from Maryland. Raphael Warnock out of Georgia. Oh, here's another star of the party. Folksahonis herself. Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts. Peter Welch, Vermont. Yeah, Peter Welch from Vermont. And, of course, Ron Wyden, who is also from Oregon. I'm really kind of surprised that I didn't see Senator Murray or Senator Cantwell from my home state of Washington on that list. But apparently they, I'm going to have to look them up and see if they actually voted for it or if they just voted like present. Because you know how they do that crap. Anyway, can't even imagine. These people are just nuts. They really are. They love their criminals. They love Tren de Aragua. They love they love fentanyl. Look at how all of their soft on crime policies over the last, several years have been. Speaking of soft on crime, here is a stellar example of a problem with soft on crime. And this is right in my neighborhood. This from the Linwood Times. That's Linwood, Washington. You see this guy in the picture? Okay. You have the guy right closest to me. It'll be your right. That guy used to be the governor. He was the governor of Washington up until he got stopped. Well, he decided to not run again. Okay. But this guy, his name's Jay Inslee. The guy to his right, your left, is a man by the name of Percy Levy, or Levi. No, Levy. I don't know. Levy, however it ends up being pronounced. Governor Inslee granted Levy clemency. He just got arrested again after a 16-month investigation by the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office for having, get this, something in the realm of 2,818 grams of powder cocaine, 147 grams of rock cocaine, also known as crack, 556 grams of fentanyl. Now, in case you haven't noticed, that could have killed like 200 and some odd thousand people, just the fentanyl alone. That 556 grams, this is how bad this stuff is. 556 grams would have been enough to kill 278,000 people. According to the most recent census data, that would have been roughly 1/3 of the population of the county that he was arrested in. Really. Well, Bob Ferguson got elected as the governor. Anyway, so no, this guy is not in power. Oh, Bobby boy. Yeah, I saw that too. It'll come back in just a second. Yeah, it'll come back. I don't know why, but it dropped out for a second. Anyway. Yeah, these guys, they love their criminals. They really do. They love their criminals. Oh, Nana, the wonderful math wizard. 556 grams is equal to 1.22 or 226 pounds. There you go. Yeah. Anyway, I can't believe these people. I really don't. I really can't. Well, I see that Amy in the chat is about ready to whelping a litter of pups, and that they are going to be with her for 8 weeks, which leads me into my next sponsor here. Talked about them once before, but if you have a dog, we've all been there. Our pup goes from full energy to sick and miserable in an instant, and at the worst times. Then we're calling the vets in the middle of the night or on weekends trying to find a clinic that's going to take the dog and you in. It's a terrible way to manage your dog's health, not to mention your stress levels and your monthly budget. That's why people are getting the Pet Emergency Kit by Positive. That's Pawsitive. Positive. It contains critical medications and supplies that can not only keep your pet out of the veterinary office, but may even save your dog's life. Their kits contain critical kit. Wow. They really are not liking me talking about these guys. Their kits contain medications like activated charcoal, styptic powder, and more. It might save your dog's life. Head on over to Positive, Pawsitive, okay, positive.com, and use promo code STUDIO to get 15% off your pet emergency kit. That's positive.com. Use promo code STUDIO to get 15% off your pet emergency kit. All right, at least I got it in. Anyway. Oh, my goodness. We'll see with that. All right. Well, one last thing before I take off, and I'm probably going to end up ending early because obviously I'm having some challenges here. But the French, there's a French lawmaker who has made a demand of America. That's right. This French lawmaker, who is a socialist French Euro deputy, Raphael Glucksmann, he's a member of the leftist Socialists and Democrat Party, sees it that the United States no longer represents the the values of freedom, and he actually believes we should ship the Statue of Liberty back. So apparently he was at some sort of a convention, and his Place Publique leftist movement, he was saying how disappointed he is in the United States and why we should not keep what was originally a gift from France. He says, "Give us back the Statue of Liberty. We're going to say to the Americans who have chosen to side with tyrants." So he's talking about the Democrats. No, he's actually talking about conservatives, whatever. Anyway, to the Americans who fired researchers for demanding scientific freedom. Oh, that would be Fauci. Yeah, anyway, give us back the Statue of Liberty, and we gave it to you as a gift, but apparently you despise it. So it will be just fine here at home. Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. Let's talk about gifts. Let's begin with World War I. That the United States took care of and anyway. Then also too, World War II. Hey, yeah. Do you remember D-Day? Which was the Allied invasion of Normandy, France, where the Germans had already taken it over? Yeah, let's talk about that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. So anyway, and by the way, I don't think that they've actually paid us back for all of that. I think they still owe us for that stuff. Anyway. Oh my goodness, folks. This is just all over for this. I can't even imagine this. Anyway, all right, guys. Yeah, we're going to end it a little early. I got some work to do, and plus the stream is messing up. So we're going to end it a little early. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are there, signed up and signed in, make sure that you follow or search up and follow the American Perspective channel. You hit that green follow button to get notified every time I go live. Also, too, get those thumbs up and like buttons across all of my platforms, whether it be X, Facebook, YouTube, and, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.